topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good morning. Welcome to another Ask the Experts show where we bring you the finest experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Today, we've got a great show. Boy, we got so many emails over the last week and a half, people wanting to know when we're going to have something expert about this deficit problem. And we have in my mind, the best expert we could possibly have. Let me introduce you to Ray Ferrara with Provise and Wealth Management. Good morning, Ray.
Steve, good morning, and great to be with you once again.
Wow, I got to tell you, when we started promoting that you were going to be on the show this week, that we got a lot of emails, people saying, are you going to be talking about the debt ceiling? That seems to be what's on everybody's mind. But before we go there, which we are definitely going to go there, tell people about your company and about your background.
Steve, Provise Management Group is a financial planning and investment management firm with the emphasis on financial planning. We're serving about 1,200 clients in over 30 states, and managing about $1.6 billion on behalf of those clients as of the end of March. We've got 14 financial advisors, all but one of whom is a certified financial planner, and she's on the way to getting it, and backed up by a wonderful staff of 14 people. And we have offices both in Tampa, Florida, and in Clearwater.
I got to tell you, we had about, I think, 3 or 4 emails after your last show complimenting you on what a great job. So I know we have a great expert. It's real. I just want to tell everybody we have opened up now in Orlando. So if you're in the Orlando area, you can catch us on Tuesdays. I wanted to let people know that. Ray, I got to tell you, we got to talk about this debt ceiling. People are really getting worried about it. Where's a good place to start with a debt ceiling today?
A resolution. That's a good place to start. Well, I think most everybody knows that the Republicans, after several months, finally passed legislation to raise the debt ceiling. But along with that, they coupled ways to reduce some spending, not in a significant way, but in a meaningful way. Conversely, the president has indicated that he wants a clean debt ceiling bill. He doesn't want any hooks attached to it. And that's where the conversations have been and continue to be right through this past weekend, unfortunately. Both sides say that they won't let the United States default, but Janet Yellen said as of yesterday on several of the talk shows that she is starting to look at, beginning in the early part of June, how she's going to prioritize paying people because she won't have enough cash to pay people, which essentially means that we would end up defaulting on our debt. And that simply cannot happen. I mean, it can't happen for all the obvious reasons. But on the world stage, the dollar has been and continues to be the currency of choice for trade, the world currency, if you will. Every time we go through this kind of brinksmanship, we lose some credibility with the world, and others then can pick at us. And to lose the dollar as the world's currency would be devastating in the short run for sure, and even more devastating in the in the long run. So how does all of this play out? I guess our guess is as good as anyone else's. Both sides have to be able to claim some form of victory.
Yes.
Perhaps there are two separate bills that are agreed upon that will be backed. One is raising the debt ceiling that will immediately be followed by one that cuts some expenses, and then the president can say, well, it was a clean bill, and then the Republicans can say, well, we got our spending cuts, and it might be the other way around. The spending cuts come first, and then the clean debt ceiling. Everybody knows it'll be a negotiation. Both sides want to be winners, and unfortunately, the losers are always those of us that aren't in Congress and aren't sitting in the White House with all of this brinksmanship and gamesmanship. It's unfortunate, but it's where we are today. So look for them to come up with a resolution. Hopefully they come up with a resolution before they go home for the Memorial Day weekend. I don't want to wait till next week in the first part of June. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Any gut feeling?
Well, my heart says I want it this week. My gut says it'll be next week.
Okay. Well, we hear about a lot of it has been kicking the can down the road. And I also hear there's a lot of earmarks that the Republicans want taken out. I just don't, if we can't default, I just don't see how you have an upper hand at all. I mean, if they know that, it's the fact that if we cannot negotiate, because last time I heard the president saying, this is it, we're not going to negotiate. That's not a way to get anything done. And that's what scares me.
Steve, the good news is, I guess they are negotiating at this point. The Democrats, it seems, were counting throughout late winter and the early spring for the Republicans to not be able to pass legislation. McCarthy only has a 4-seat majority, and even then, a strong right-wing part of the party, about 15 members of Congress that really hold the sway over him. But they were able to pass a bill, and they were able to say, this is our position. And the president, I think rightfully so, has said, okay, well, now let's talk. And so they are in those negotiations. Again, according to early reports from the conversations over the weekend, they're still far apart. But hopefully, as I say, they'll come to some type of a resolution. But again, none of this is good for us on the world stage, let alone for those of us here in the United States. And let's get it done. Let's get on with it, and let's figure out a way to not let this happen again.
Yeah, how do you avoid this from occurring in the future?
Well, the debt ceiling, Steve, is really a fabricated number that goes back 50, 60 years now. The 14th Amendment of the Constitution says basically that we will not allow the people who from whom we have borrowed money to default. And so there is a constitutional argument that some would like to make that says this debt ceiling thing is just ridiculous. On the other hand, I think there's some benefit to the debt ceiling to just make everybody stop and think again how much money we're borrowing. We're up to $31 trillion. And a lot of that, of course, has occurred just in the last few years. between the pandemic and the infrastructure bill that was passed late last year by Congress. So hopefully there'll be a good debate after this, and perhaps a way to solve the problem on a go-forward basis. But it's probably going to take a unified White House and a unified Congress to do that. And by that, I mean that the Democrats are all in control, or the Republicans are all in control in terms of actually getting something done. And on all of the issues that Congress ought to be coming together on, they just do not seem able to do so. It's not the politics you and I grew up with, but it's the politics we have today.
You know, I got to remember, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, them saying if the debt ever gets to 20 trillion, we're in big trouble. And look where we're at now.
Absolutely.
We're way past $20 trillion.
And we're 50% above that. And they probably were right. I mean, our debt now is more than 100% of our gross domestic product. And that's not a good thing.
Last week, Ray, the preliminary numbers for Social Security adjustment was announced. How could it be so small with all the inflation around us?
Well, last year, you had the largest increase in the Social Security benefit, something in the neighborhood of 8.3%, coming off of last year where inflation was running so rampant. Still running much higher than where the Federal Reserve says that it wants to go, which is 2%. And we're still running in the neighborhood of about 5%, down, but still well above their target. And the number that they did come out with as a preliminary number, it's not a final number, but as a preliminary number, is 3.1%. And I have to be honest, Steve, I don't know where they come up with those numbers, given where we are today. The unfortunate part is that Social Security does not use the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, as the inflator of the benefits. They use a different measure of inflation, which is called I believe it's referred to as the Urban Workers Index. And it does not really, in my mind, reflect the costs that are being faced by seniors that are on than others that are on Social Security benefits. But nonetheless, a 3% increase will be better than none. And if inflation continues to persist through the summer at a higher level, I would look for that number to adjust upwards. But I can't see them going much above 4% for the year, which is just mind-boggling to me. Again, another important element that Congress really needs to work on. They have less than 10 years before Social Security will supposedly run out of their trust fund money, and the benefits would end up being cut. And the longer they wait, the harder it is going to be to solve the problem. But talking about the proverbial kick it down the can, that's what they've done. And unfortunately, that's what I think they'll continue to do.
Last night, I was watching of course, the Miami Heat, and they were talking on national television. And I thought about a conversation you and I had. They were talking about that each NBA team should have an advisor when these guys come out of college that would help them with talk about their finances, people approaching them, endorsements. But I started thinking about this conversation we had, that it actually starts with college sports. And that's really where they should start teaching these athletes about their money, because, I told you I was a sports agent, and I was surprised by these professional athletes who came out of sports, because they all don't make millions of dollars. You hear about the top ones that do. but come out broke. And to me, it should start in college. We even got a letter from Paul in Indian Rocks Beach. It is so amazing that they don't teach these kids about life, before they get into the big money.
Yeah, Steve, it certainly athletics is highlighted because of the big money in professional sports, and more recently because of name, image, and likeness, or NIL payments that come out of cooperatives, where young men and women are receiving money, and some very substantial. But the problem goes beyond athletics. The problem is that there is nowhere generally in school most people are taught about the basics of money. Now, here in Florida, we're very fortunate in that starting this fall, it will now be required that every senior that graduates from high school, or to graduate from high school, has to take a 1-semester course in the basics of just managing money. How to credit cards
Wow,
work,
I did not know that.
what to do with a checking account, how to borrow money, what's the cost of doing that, what are the alternatives of doing that. And I've been working hard with the University of South Florida and my alma mater back in Maryland to institute financial courses at the college level. And again, not just for the athletes, but I think there's a special issue that relates with the athletes, because they're the ones that potentially are going to get a significant amount of money at one time, and perhaps over a period of years, and a real opportunity for them to put themselves in a good place. And the fact is, many of them don't realize they have to pay taxes on that money.
Yes.
And that's kind of the first painful lesson that they learn. And unfortunately, because they think that the gravy train will last forever, coming out of high school or coming out of college and going into the pros, there's a tendency to spend the money in a very willy-nilly kind of way, when in fact, if they could resist that temptation and be educated to the importance of trying to save some portion of that for their long-term financial security, they'd be in a much better place. And so hopefully those efforts will not just be extended to the athletic programs, but to all students. And very excited about what's going to be happening here in Florida in high schools starting this coming fall.
But I am so glad to hear that. I was not even aware of that. In my days, mine was mostly professional football players, and a lineman, an offensive lineman, would average about 80 to 90,000 a year. And
now you are aging yourself, Steve. You're aging yourself with offensive.
I know it.
$80,000 and $90,000.
But I mean, it was so sad, because one thing I never did, I never wanted to handle my players' money. It was the biggest, and there was a very big player that came out of the University of Miami, went to the NFL, who had his agent handling his money. He lost everything, Ray. And it's your business is so tough, because you could do 9 great things for somebody and 1 bad, and that's the one they remember. So I always wanted professionals like you to handle their money. But I'm so glad they're doing this out of high school and not even waiting till college.
Well, Steve, back in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, the NFL Players Association brought a group of financial planners in to chat with them at that time, to separate the agent from the investment side. And fortunately, they were able to do that. But it is amazing when people, I'm going to say, win the lottery, and I don't necessarily just mean the lottery, but when they get that big contract, et cetera.
Yes.
The friends and relatives who come out of the woodwork that take advantage of these young men in NFL and certainly women in professional sports in the same situation. Unfortunately, much of that abuse actually came from the athlete's own family. And so again, education can go a long way to helping them be prepared for those that are fortunate enough to get those big contracts, and being able to hire a professional certainly makes a lot of sense. And hopefully they listen to it. And our experience, I have to be honest, Steve, with you, our experience in working with professional athletes, it's been about 50-50. 100% of the time we tell them the right things, but only about 50% of the time do they listen to us.
I think one of the things they're embarrassed to ask questions. They think they're going to look foolish, and they come out not really understanding. But, I'm sure you heard this expression. I would tell my clients, if they weren't your cousin before, they're not your cousin now. Because I have seen this movie before, and all of a sudden people they hadn't heard from in years coming out of the woodwork. But I heard last night during the game, one of the players actually said it's really hard being a professional athlete today. And it's because of all the money they make. I mean, a lineman making 7, 8, 9, 10 million a year is like, I just can't fathom it.
Steve, interestingly, yesterday I played golf with a former member of the PGA Tour who's now on the senior tour. And he made the observation, not just about the money, but the social media aspects and the pressure that is put on the athletes today, with how easy it is to reach out to people, to catch them on camera, et cetera. He said, the emotional toll is not just about money, that financial toll, but it's also the emotional toll of constantly being in the spotlight, no matter where they go. And even those that are, not the really big names, but well known within their local community.
Ray, let's give everybody your phone number and how they can reach you, even through your social media.
So, Steve, our telephone number is 727-441-9022. It is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Again, it's 727-441-9022. And another way to learn more about us is to simply go to provise.com, which is our website, obviously. And do want to make everyone aware that whenever someone calls in to visit with us, they're entitled to a complimentary meeting, either in our Tampa or Clearwater office or by Zoom. So that if they're out of the Tampa Bay area, as I said, we're visiting with clients in over 30 different states. So that is always available. And for those that find this information from our shows to be helpful, every 2 weeks, we send out a little newsletter to our clients and friends talking about changes to tax law, opportunities that exist from a financial planning standpoint. We're not talking about individual investments in the newsletter. So if anybody would like that, simply give us a call, or you can send me an email at ferrara@provise.com, and we'll be happy to add you to the list.
Ray, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. Ray will be back with us again in 2 weeks with more Ask the Experts. Get your questions in, and we will relay those to Ray. Ray, have a wonderful week.
You as well, Steve, and look forward to being with you again.
Same here. God bless. That is Ray Ferrara. He is with Provise Wealth Management, and I'm so glad we have him, because first of all, you've got to have someone you can trust when it comes to wealth management, a financial advisor. We're going to go to our next expert. And let me tell you, if you've had problems with snoring, you do not want to miss this show. Uh, I am a perfect example because I have sleep apnea, and I am getting ready to start on our next guest program. I can't tell you how excited I am about this, and we're going to get into this. Let me introduce you to our next expert. She's our expert in several of our markets. Janet Bennett. She is a speech language pathologist. We're going to be talking about sleep apnea today and snoring. And we will, if you want to reach her, you can go to stopsnoringtampa.com. Her number is 828-285-8814. Welcome, Janet.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on today.
It's so good. Listen, I want to pass your information around to as many people as possible because I truly understand people who have sleep apnea, have a snoring problem. I completely understand what they're going through. I went through it for 10 years before I finally did something. And we're going to talk about your technique because, folks, I'm going to tell you something. Whether you've been diagnosed with sleep apnea or not, if you have, you're probably on a machine. I will do anything to get off that machine. I am telling you, it is no way to sleep, though without it, it does help me to sleep. Janet, first of all, tell people about yourself and your practice.
Okay. So I'm a speech pathologist. I have a master's degree in speech pathology, and I have been practicing for over 30 years, a long time. I have Asheville Speech Associates, and about 2003, I was treating a 14-year-old football player for a tongue thrust. And some of you may not know what that is, but that's when a person has buck teeth, their tongue, when they swallow, would push their teeth out, or someone has a lisp. They often are swallowing the wrong way. But anyway, I was treating this guy with tongue exercises. That's what speech therapists do, because all of this is muscle. The tongue, everything is muscle. And so there are other speech problems that require making the muscle stronger. And so tongue exercises are very common. And the third time that I saw this guy, his mom came into my office and she said, "Janet, what are you doing to Adam?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "Well, he's always been the loudest snorer in the world. He rattled the windows, and now he's not making a sound." And so I looked at Adam and he said, "It's true." He said, I'm getting better grades. I can concentrate better and I run faster." So that really got my attention. Excuse me. And so I thought that I would find on the internet that whenever someone snores, then they would have tongue exercises to make them stop snoring. But that was not the case. I didn't know anything about snoring. So anyway, I developed my own stop snoring program. And it's been very successful. And I treated a group of 86 people from all over the United States, and 94% stopped snoring.
That's amazing.
So you won't find that kind of progress, with those percentages. It's just way high. Excuse me. And so now I feel like it's my time to save the world, if you will. So I'm trying to do that by offering a treatment program online that people can do themselves. It's very super easy. It takes about 7 weeks. Imagine that, 7 weeks to stop snoring. And some people who snore year after year, they snore longer and longer. And the chance is going to maybe happen that they will get sleep apnea because of all the snoring, and they just get louder. And anyway, so they need to have a sleep study. And sleep apnea is very dangerous because your heart stops each time that you, whenever you're snoring, your heart can stop, and you have to kind of snort yourself awake, and that's a sign you have sleep apnea. And so if we can stop you from snoring, then hopefully, it can't develop into sleep apnea.
you literally stop breathing when you
Right.
have sleep apnea. And you gave me the numbers of how many times a person stops breathing overnight, and it's just I guess we're trying to show you and educate you and teach you how serious this condition is. Because in my case, when someone would tell me I'm snoring, first of all, it's embarrassing, which it shouldn't be, but you would always deny it. I'm not
Right.
snoring, you're imagining it.
Right.
And when I finally went to my sleep study and found out that I had sleep apnea, and the doctors told me about what sleep apnea really does, I don't think we give it enough emphasis because it is dangerous. It is
Right.
really dangerous.
It is.
So a doctor is going to put you on a sleep pad. And I got to tell you, it is the most uncomfortable way to sleep. Dentists have an apparatus they use. So what you're going to learn today is that Janet has developed a program over the years with great success. And I'm starting to say, what do you have to lose? I'm starting it in about a week myself. That's how much I believe in it.
Great.
Um, and it might not work for everybody. I mean, Janet didn't say, hey, it works for 100%, but neither does anything else out there. So I'm
Right.
so excited
Right.
about what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, it is fun. I'm very passionate about helping people because it is so easy. And we grew up being told if it sounds too good to be true, it
Right.
probably is. Well, that's not true in this case at all. And I wanted to point out that people who snore and then it leads to sleep apnea. Some people stop breathing 5 times an hour. Some stop breathing 20 times an hour or 60 times an hour. It's always, everybody's different. But something that's very interesting is the person who stops breathing 60 times an hour has the same symptoms, well, the same severity of symptoms that the person who just stops breathing 5 times an hour has. So they're both just as miserable, but the one, of course, with stopping more often has the larger chance that they'll have heart problems. Okay, so that's a big difference there. However, and I just want to throw out a few symptoms here. If you are just snoring, you're snoring, and maybe you haven't admitted it, but to yourself that you're snoring. You might be waking up with a dry mouth, waking up with a headache. You might wake up with a sore throat, and these things go away pretty quickly. But then throughout the day, you'll have daytime sleepiness, usually around 1 or 2 o'clock, and you always have it. And in the afternoon, you find trouble concentrating on whatever you're needing to do, and you're more prone for accidents. You might, and I'm
Yes.
going to keep throwing out some symptoms because people do not associate most of these problems with snoring. And it also is not just snoring, it's the fact that they're mouth breathing. So, mouth breathing is a big culprit, and a lot of people don't want to admit that they breathe through their mouth either. However, it is what it is. So, if you're mouth breathing, you may have felt after eating a meal, you may have felt really full and bloated. A lot of people have that feeling. You may have stomach problems after you eat a meal. A lot of us take big bites when we eat, and we eat real fast. And in the process of doing that, we, not knowing it, we take in a lot of air, and that's called air gulping. That can cause stomach problems. All of this is associated with my treatment to stop you from snoring, just snoring. And all of these other things go away because you're learning how to breathe through your nose instead of your mouth. So there's a lot involved. Some people, because you'll have swallowing problems also, some people say, I feel like something's stuck right here in my throat. And that happens quite often, and it's because your swallow
Yes.
is weak. because your tongue isn't kicking off from the right place on the roof of your mouth. So there are lots of variables that are involved, but my 7-week program is super easy. You can get it online, and you do tongue exercises 2 times a day, but you have to be faithful to that. And I provide a video of me sitting at my desk waiting for you to come visit me in the exercise room. So I'll do your exercises with you. I'll tell you how to do it, show you how to do it. I'll count for you. I'll time it, whatever we need to do. You just need to show up. Okay. And that's what's important.
And it's a 7-week program,
Mhm.
and it's an exercise program that just happens to be with your tongue.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So here's the deal. This is why you need that. The major goals for my program are: you train your tongue to live on the roof of your mouth. Now, your tongue it's all muscles. And if you snore, breathe out of your mouth, your tongue muscles are weaker than someone else's tongue muscles. Okay. So if your tongue is going to live on the roof of your mouth, it's got to be stronger. The muscles have to get ready to move to a new place and do so comfortably, so you get in the habit. And the other thing, whenever you learn to do that, you will learn how to breathe through your nose. And you will feel like a totally different person when you wake up feeling refreshed, energetic. You don't get sleepy during the daytime. And it's certainly worth the 15 or so minutes it takes to do your exercises.
Now, after the 7-week program, what happens?
Well, I have a maintenance program, if you will, that's very simple. It's a culmination of some of my favorite exercises that I think are keep your tongue stronger. But whenever you finish this program, all of a sudden your tongue is stronger and it's more toned. So now you're going to continue to talk using your tongue. You'll continue to eat using your tongue for chewing and clearing your mouth, and you will continue to do the same things, but now you are doing those things with a strong tongue. And that in itself should be the maintenance program. That's what's going to keep that happening. However, you might get a cold, can't breathe through your nose, then you have to breathe through your mouth until the cold goes away, and then you should go back to nasal breathing, because you are still in that habit. But if you have trouble getting back, you can do some exercises for a week or two just to kind of bring you back into the fold.
Whoever would have thought there was tongue exercises? Tell people about thrust.
Tongue thrust. Okay, so tongue thrust is when a person, like I said earlier, pushes the back of their teeth when they swallow, or when they swallow, the tongue comes out. And so they might have an open bite where their teeth won't close up. Some of those people have a lisp, okay, like thun for sun. Not all tongue thrusters do. But what this does is, picture this. When you lay down to sleep, everything relaxes. Your tongue relaxes, your lips relax. And if your tongue is too wide for your mouth, which happens, that's very common. So don't feel like you're the only one if you have a wide tongue. But when you lay down and everything relaxes, can't you just picture that tongue just kind of forcing the lips open? And so you're laying there, now you're breathing out of your mouth. You didn't plan to do that, but that's what happens. So whenever a person has a tongue thrust, we want to make that tongue stronger and get it back inside the mouth so that it can't, or doesn't push the lips open when they sleep.
Does snoring or sleep apnea, does that mean you have tongue thrust?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But what I found is most people who snore do have a tongue thrust because everything's weak. Okay. A lot of people who have a tongue thrust don't necessarily snore. So everybody's different. Okay. Everyone has to has to, from the beginning, understand what they're doing and how they're doing it. So this reminds me, I'm glad you asked me that. It reminds me, I've just added something new. Whenever someone does decide that they want to do these exercises, I am throwing in a free 45-minute consultation with me, so that when they purchase the program, I want to spend a few minutes with them as much as possible to get them on track and make sure they understand what they are getting ready to do. And that's a free thing that's been added, and I'm real excited about being able to work with more people.
Janet, I got to tell you, before I met you, I would have told people that, first of all, you got to get a CPAP machine. And now that I know about your program, I keep saying it doesn't hurt to try, because if there is something, and I'm not saying better, or if there's something out there that if you do have sleep apnea that can help, like with
Mhm.
this program of yours, I'm telling you, try it first before you. It's just, I am telling you from someone who knows. I am, and we're going to talk about my uh, being on the program starting next month. We're only about a week and a half away, and I cannot wait, because this program, Janet, that you've developed makes so much sense to a
Right,
person like myself
right,
who has sleep
right.
apnea.
And let me add in here, I am not here to help people get off their CPAP machine. I can't do that because I'm not a doctor, and it's been prescribed by a doctor. And so, and for a good reason. If that person decides that they want to try to get off of it, that's their not problem. It's their issue. But I do want to say this. Um, I've also I'm using some of my exercises to develop a CPAP program with the exercises. There are a lot of people out there who really need that CPAP machine, okay, but they can't get used to it. They just can't learn to like it and,
Right.
make it work for them. I mean, you'll never really like it, but you've got to make it work, do what it's supposed to do to save you. And so I think that doing my tongue exercises, even though you continue to use the CPAP machine, will help you get more used to using that.
Janet, you have never, with all the shows we've done so far, you've never said for someone to get off their CPAP machine. You've never said that. And that's not what the show is about. What we're doing here is now giving you a different choice. Like, Janet said, she, had great success, wasn't 100%, but a person like myself, because it is uncomfortable. We were not meant to sleep with a CPAP machine. Uh, it does help. I'm not putting this down. And, if you're in a relationship, you're married or something, you definitely want to take care of this, because it can ruin a relationship. No one wants to go sleep in the other room. So this is just something different, that you don't have to put a piece of equipment in your mouth.
Right,
You don't have to have nasals in your nose while you sleep at night, or a mask. We saw how hard it was during the pandemic wearing a mask.
right.
So, what you're offering is just, hey, you've got something that has worked for a lot of people, that I feel so comfortable with, that I'm going to go on the program, and we're going to report my success every week, because I know it's going to
Okay.
be successful.
Yeah, yeah.
But I
Um,
think this is God sent. I'm so passionate about this,
Good,
Janet, that what you
good.
are offering, and it's a 7-week program.
Right.
Which,
And let me explain, if I may. If a person is interested, You just go online, purchase the program. It's very affordable, and you will be able to start immediately because you will get the program electronically. So you can start with the lesson 1, exercises 1, 2, and 3 very quickly. And so I'm going to give you one exercise to do now. Okay. I want you to say the word door. And when you say the word door, I want you to feel, where does your tongue push when you make the duh sound? You've never had to think about this before. What does it push against, Steve? Door.
For my upper teeth.
Okay,
My
the
tongue.
back of your teeth. Okay, see,
Yeah.
that tells me you have a tongue thrust. All
Okay.
right. So because your tongue is
Go
supposed to
ahead.
push on the skin, the palate, right behind your upper teeth. So there's a little
Ah,
smooth spot behind your teeth, and then you feel those ridges.
yes.
It's called the alveolar ridge. And so your tongue really should be on that smooth place where you make the duh sound or the no, the N sound. So that is the magic spot. So the first exercise is to put your tongue up there, close your mouth, and maybe, hopefully, at least the first third of the tongue is also touching the palate. Just let it go up there comfortably. And you sit there for 5 minutes. And while you're sitting there for 5 minutes, your saliva builds up. And so you will have a chance to practice swallowing a new way. Your tongue really wants to slide forward whenever you swallow, and you will not let it. You'll push hard against the spot, and you get through that swallow, and it will never be that difficult again. Each time you do it, it gets easier. So that's everyone's first exercise. And then every week you will go back to the electronic record program, and you will look at lesson 2 and then lesson 3 each week. But like I said, I'll be there to do the exercises with you, and it's super easy, super easy.
I can, like I said, I really appreciate your success. Now I'm already starting to realize about my tongue.
Good,
Um,
good.
and muscle has memory. So I guess that's one of the things that once you've done it long enough that your
That's right.
muscles start. I love that concept.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep, it's good. So now I'm thinking about people with a big tongue. Um, I knew that what I wanted to do was somehow think of a way to make the tongue skinnier so that it fits better on the roof of your mouth. And so I have invented a special tool, and it has 3 little balls on the end of that. It's triangular. Anyway, it's called a tongue stick, of course. Couldn't think of any other name for it. And so this tongue stick you will be using for exercises, and you will literally be stroking your tongue to make your tongue skinnier. And as silly and crazy as that may sound, it works, because whenever you do that, you're tickling the muscles, and they do like this. They squish up, and so it makes your tongue skinnier. And because of the muscle memory, it continues on that way. Yeah, it's quite amazing.
Janet, we've been scrolling how people can reach you on our TV. For those who are going to be enjoying your podcast and radio, give everybody your phone number and how they can reach you.
Okay, it's 828-285-8814. StopSnoringTampa.com. Thank you for having me as your guest today.
Oh, God, you know what? I can't wait till next week.
Okay, we'll do it.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
It's Janet Bennett. Boy, I'm just so excited that, God, to stop snoring without a mask, the possibilities of that. Anyhow, we're going to be back with you again next Tuesday with more Ask the Experts. Enjoy the week. See you soon.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.